Hi everyone, my name is Jashley Baez, and for my first city walk, I chose to look at things through the problem lens of translating a city. So if you see me looking down, it's because I wrote all of my notes on a Google Doc on my phone, so I will be reading the notes from here and showing you my city walk. So before I start, I'd like to start with a quote, kind of reflecting why I chose this problem lens and a quote that really stuck out to me. And it is from one of Borges's poems called Buenos Aires. And it says, Buenos Aires is the next street, the one that I've never walked. It's the secret heart of the city blocks, its deepest patios. It's what house fronts are hiding. It's my enemy, if I have one. It's the person who does not like my poems. I too dislike them. It's that shabby bookshop we may once have entered and now have forgotten. It's a snatch of whistled milonga that we cannot place and that moves us. It is all that's been lost and all that's to come. It's what lies beyond, what belongs to others, what is around the corners, the neighborhood which is neither yours nor mine, the things we do not understand yet love. So I love this poem because basically Borges is translating what he believes the city of Buenos Aires should represent, what he believes it is defined as, which is defined as many things, as we talked about before in the start of the semester. A city is composed of the people, the food, the music, the architecture, the buildings, literature, history, death, life. There's so many components to what makes a city a city. So, and I just love all the different translations and definitions. So that is why I chose the problem lens, translating a city. So for my first location, I chose Palmero. And the quote that goes along with this is from The Mythical Foundings of Buenos Aires, another Borges poem. And it reads, On the coast they put up a few ramshackle huts and slept uneasily. This they claim in the Riachuelo, but that is a story dreamed up in the Boca. It was really a city block in my district. So that is the picture that I chose, and Palmero is a district of Buenos Aires in Argentina. Palmero translates to a palm tree, and when I think of palm trees, I think tropical, I think island trees that I love to see when I'm on vacation. And I just think of life, recharge. When I think of vacation, I think of coming back to life, recharging myself, having fun. I think relaxing. I think just coming back. Like, you take a break, recharge up that battery, you come back, and there is life. And Palmero is a city full of life, which I learned after doing a lot of research. It is buzzing with life. It is known as one of the best cities in Buenos Aires, filled with eccentric people, art, new structures, trendy shops, fancy restaurants, and people walking the streets at all hours. It is more modern and full of life, so I personally love the fact that a palm tree is basically its name, because they make me think of fun and life. So that is the first location that I chose. And now for my second location, I chose the Wall of La Recoleta. And for this location, I looked at another Borges poem called also Buenos Aires, and the quote I chose was, Es el paredón de la Recoleta contra el cual murió ejecutado uno de mis mayores. The wall of the Recoleta against which one of my ancestors was executed. So there's the English and Spanish version. And the reason I chose this, well, first I did some research on La Recoleta, and I found a great website that talked a little bit about the structure. And so I'm going to just read a quick quote that I found online. And the website says, The entrance to the cemetery is through neoclassical gates with tall Greek columns. The cemetery contains many elaborate marble mausoleums decorated with statues in a wide variety of architectural styles. The entire cemetery is laid out in sections like city blocks, with the wide tree-lined main walkways branching into sidewalks filled the mausoleums. The mausoleums are the final resting places for many of Argentina's honorable family members, and each family member has a unique mausoleum with unique expression for their family member's eternal resting place. This is basically, I looked at it as a city within a city, because these mausoleums represent different families. And I know that you might think, cemetery, why would I want to go to a city and explore a cemetery? Because you might think instantly of things like death and sadness and loss. But when I really looked at the structure and the literature and just thinking about it, there's a lot more to it than just that. This is, if you look at it through a different lens, it can translate into more than just a resting place for the dead. It is filled with stories of love. It is filled with ancestors. It is filled with history. It is filled with honorable lives that lived, and the ancestors of Argentina, which created the city that we get to enjoy and study today. So that is the way I chose to translate it, and that is the reason I thought it was important to include it in my city walk. And my third location that I chose was El Museo del Patrimonio Histórico Palacio de Aguas Corrientes. So, in English, that is the Water Company Palace. So, the quote that I chose, I found in the Tango Singer, page 36, and I just love the way it looks. If you see here, it's really beautiful. It looks like a giant castle. So yes, the Tango Singer, page 36, and the quote is, "One afternoon about 2, Martel went all the way into the waterworks palace when the ironwork footbridges, the valves, tanks, pipes, and columns, which 100 years before had distributed 72,000 tons of drinking water to the inhabitants of the Buenos Aires, were still preserved intact. I'd heard he'd sung another obscure tango there and left in a wheelchair, so it wasn't important to him to repeat the patterns of history, because history doesn't move, does not speak. Everything in it has already been said. He wanted to recover a past city that only he knew and transfigure it into the present of a city he'd take with him when he died." So, this location to me translates into something powerful. I look at it, I see the structure, and I think, wow, huge power. And like, insane power is what I think of. Strength and a lot of work is what I think of. It is a historic site that gave a city life through water. We as humans can't survive without it, and this amazing architecture which lives on is a museum today. As a museum today, was once a powerhouse to the city. So this giant infrastructure used to supply over 72,000 tons of water to the people of Buenos Aires. So I like to think of it in terms of science, is what I thought of. And many of us learned in biology that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of a human cell. In this case, the Water Company Palace is the powerhouse. It is also the same powerhouse in which Martel chose to sing tango. He had a powerful voice with powerful music, even though his body was frail and moved along in a wheelchair. To me, this location signifies that power that Martel had. So I thought I was able to compare Martel's powerful voice, even though he had a weak body, to this structure, which was the powerhouse that provided water to this city. And I liked the way I was able to just translate it into something more than just like a structure or a building. And even to this day, it is still standing, and it may not supply 72,000 tons of water anymore, but you can go visit it today, and I thought it was just really cool that it's still standing, alive and well, and then that is why I included it in my city walk. Now for my fourth place, I chose Libertador Avenue. So I didn't pick any specific location on this avenue, but here's the quote that I chose. Here's the quote that I chose. So it's found on in the Tango Singer, page 131. "Towards the end of November, NYU sent me an unexpected remittance of money. El Tucumano suggested we forget the bohemian scripting of the boarding house life and go spend a night in the suite on the top floor of the Hotel Plaza Francia, where we could look out over the Libertador Avenue and some of its palaces, as well as buoys of the North Shore that twinkled above the unmoving waters to the river." So, Libertador in Spanish translates in English to liberator. A liberator is someone who frees a person or place from imprisonment or oppression. In the Tango Singer, Bruno decides to use the unexpected grant of money he received from university to free himself from the boarding house life. This avenue stretches over 25 kilometers and is filled with landmarks such as the National Museum of Fine Art, the National Library, where Adele did a lot of her studying, which I thought was cool, the Carta Magna Monument, and Bosch Palace. It is filled with art, architecture, shops, restaurants, and so much more. I particularly love the name of the avenue and how Bruno used it to escape his prison, so to speak, even though obviously it wasn't obviously a prison, but I just really liked the name Libertador, translating to liberator, and the idea of Bruno being able to free himself and explore and have so much opportunity on this avenue. And so I thought it was really important to explore this in my city walk, because I know I would personally were in Buenos Aires, this would definitely be a very busy avenue that I would love to just explore all the buildings and everything that it has to offer. For my next place, I chose Bar Británico, which is the Bruno visited a lot in the book. So this is the picture I chose, and the quote is found on page 131, and it says, "I met El Tucumano almost every night in the Británico. We argued over and over again about the best way to get Bonarino out of the cellar without ever agreeing." So I chose this place because the Tango Singer talks about this bar on basically every other page. It is constantly being brought up. It's basically like the home ground meeting place for all of the characters in the book. It may appear as just an ordinary dingy old cafe. However, it translates into something so much more than just a small dingy location. It is the place for intellectuals, for writers, for chess players, for people to talk, debate ideas, and ponder in thought. In the book when it was written, this bar was open 24 hours, which I thought was crazy because I can't think of any other places other than like McDonald's, which is open 24 places. So this cafe opened 24 hours. And I did some research on it, and it is no longer open for 24 hours. However, it is open until like 3 a.m. And it's just like the hub for people who want to explore intellectually, write, and I just found that really, really interesting that this location translates to more than just a cafe where you drink with your buddies, or more than just a cafe where you're drinking coffee, you know. It's like the meeting place for great minds to come together, which I thought was very, very interesting. And also the history of this place is interesting. I discovered that the bar was almost shut down some years ago. However, the city argued that it was a staple in history, and because of its notable bar status, it has lived on today. So I thought that was pretty cool. My next location is Parque Lezama, and I thought that this picture was really pretty, and the structures in the back kind of reminded me of like Russia a little bit, so I thought that was pretty cool. And the quote is on page 81 of the Tango Singer. "I like to make out the silhouette of the palms and tipa trees in the Parque Lezama from there, and to imagine that great masonry urns in the central avenue on clay pedestals with identical bas-reliefs depicting the goddess of fertility. The place was hostile in early hours, and no one dared walk through it. For me, it was enough to know it was on the other side of the street. The park was the birthplace of Buenos Aires and spread out from its slopes over the flat countryside, defining the ferocity of the southeasterlies and the voracious river mud. At night, it felt more humid than other parts of the city, and people were stifled in the summer and chilled to the bone in the winter." So, I chose this because I love how the book translates this park into so many different ideas. It is almost like it has different personalities coming together to make it one place altogether. In this way, it is also like a city in itself, because a city is also composed of millions of personalities coming together. And this park is also considered the birthplace of Buenos Aires, which I found really important. So I liked the concept that the book offered this park. I thought that was very interesting. And the last location I chose is Cafe Marco. And I looked into one of the tango lyrics for the songs that we studied, and I chose the song South by Homero Manzi. And the quote from the song I chose is, "San Juan and where the street corner lost sky, Pompeia and reaching the embankment, your 20 years trembling with affection under the kiss I then stole from you, nostalgia of things that have passed, sand that life swept away, sorrow of the barrio that have changed, and bitterness of a dream that died." So this cafe was made famous by this song. After reading so much literature on Buenos Aires, when I translate the meaning of the city and the many concepts, I think of art. Art can be expressed in a million ways through music, such as tango, through dance, through food, through paintings. This cafe has kept the spirit of art alive, which I believe is an important translation and symbolism of the city walk. It is more than just an ordinary cafe. Today, this cafe is located in Boedo, also known as Buenos Aires' most up-and-coming neighborhood, which also claims to be the birthplace of tango, which is obviously kind of the main concept of the book that we read. And although the idea that this traditional barrio is on the road to modern-style development might strike fear into the hearts of those who love it and the locals in the area, it has managed to retain its authentic feel, which I thought was really important. And I just love how after researching, I found out that this place keeps art alive and has so much to offer. And by night, it also becomes a place for tango performers to perform, which I thought was really, really cool. So I was able to translate this place into like